Two performers could have worked their damn asses off to sell folks on the genuine hatred shared between the pair, or a wonderfully detailed story could have been patiently executed over months or even years. But all of that effort and excitement can quickly evaporate if certain mistakes are not avoided. So I am Gareth, this is What Culture Wrestling, and here are 10 costly mistakes that doomed great wrestling feuds. Number 10, The Miz vs Daniel Bryan, not allowing the bitter enemies to really embrace the blood feud. After an absolutely riveting exchange between the polar opposites on Talking Smack in 2016, folks were champing at the bit to see an unretired American dragon beat the hell out of a certain A-lister. However, when they were finally treated to exactly that in the summer of 2018, it's safe to say the entire thing just didn't live up to the hype generated by that earlier talk show explosion between The Miz and D-Bry. Things never really sparked into life for the two. WWE seemingly never saw what could have been a hugely personal war between a guy who once branded the other a coward for not making the comeback he'd promised fans, and the underdog who refused to play things safe as anything other than a throwaway feud to keep both blokes busy for a few months. And after years of build-up and anticipation, the hugely underwhelming program went out with a whimper as Bryan stole a roll-up win in Australia. Number 9, MJF vs Adam Cole. Too much Kingdom slow-motion nonsense. In all honesty, you could probably say it was Adam Cole's dodgy landing on the night of Grand Slam 2023 that really ruined this once magical program between bestest pals. But AEW certainly didn't help themselves by choosing to keep the Bay man busy in the most unfunny and unimaginative way possible in the weeks that followed his ankle being battered. Repeatedly helping out his pal Roderick Strong and hanging out with the Kingdom, the foursome passed the time by taking part in hilarious shenanigans like scooting around a house and spreading peanut butter in slow motion. The whole thing just felt like a lazy attempt to replicate the vibes captured in Cole and Maxwell's many joyous adventures and exchanges outside of the squared circle, and ultimately only really succeeded in turning folks off the tail being told about the best pals, Cole's whiny neck-strong mate, and the devil in the room. Number 8, Becky Lynch vs Trish Stratus, taking too damn long. While the concept of a heel Trish Stratus irritating the Irish badass for a few months seemed rather strong on paper, in reality choosing to kick off the feud not long after Mania 39 with the intention of the entire thing reaching its climax at SummerSlam was probably a little too ambitious. Stratus noticeably getting the hump in the wake of then Women's Tag Team Champions Lita and Becky Lynch stealing all the spotlight heading into the show of shows, and the Legend's decision to stab both of her former teammates in the back as she cost them their belts got things off to a fairly strong start too. Once they'd gotten their first fight out of the way at Night of Champions though, fans began to lose interest in the increasingly dull promo battles between the two as SummerSlam appeared to be moving further away each and every week. WWE then opted to keep the never-ending feud off the Super Show altogether, though that at least lit a fire in both ladies' bellies that resulted in a fantastic steel cage showdown at Payback. And with that in mind, I want to know what you think your most disappointing feud of 2023 has been. You let me know in the comment section down below. Number 7, CM Punk vs WWE, adding Kevin Nash. WWE hadn't felt as hot as it did in 2011 for a decade, and that was all thanks to a little rebellious punker getting everyone's attention with one particularly mesmerizing pipe bomb. The early days of CM Punk's fight against not just the face that runs the place, John Cena, but WWE management was utterly gripping to behold. And then things all got a little muddled in the wake of the then WWE Champion's return to sports entertainment, not long after blowing a kiss to Vince McMahon in Chicago. After just about managing to keep hold of his belt at SummerSlam, the bizarre arrival of Kevin Nash ultimately resulted in the best in the world dropping the strap to Mr. Money in the Bank Alberto Del Rio, as Punk's once exciting war against the establishment ended up getting bogged down by peculiar text message twists, Nash not being cleared to compete, and Triple H's desire to beat this effer, according to Big Kev himself. Put simply, this program started to become infinitely less cool after this Big Daddy arrived on the scene. Number 6, Wardlow vs MJF. Contract issues lead to Maxwell no-showing a fan event. An increasingly popular babyface Mr. Mayhem looked poised to break out as AEW's next potential main event star in 2022. However, trouble behind the scenes soon completely overshadowed what should have been a perfect end to this otherwise masterfully told story. With Maxwell and Tony Khan reportedly clashing over the former's contract situation, the Salt of the Earth felt he was worth more than he was currently on. The eventual AEW World Champion decided to no-show a fan signing event on Double or Nothing weekend. And though MJF would end up still doing the JOB for the big lad at the pay-per-view, fans were talking more about the villain's real-life antics than Wardlow on what should have been his night. Oh, Everyone, I just quickly want to say thank you today for watching this video right now, and if you like what you see, then go and click on that subscribe button down below. Number 5, Seth Rollins versus Dean Ambrose. Dean becomes a germaphobe and references Roman's illness. Members of the Badass Shield faction clashing always has the potential to become something properly special, and this was precisely why folks were once so thrilled about the idea of a then Dean Ambrose finally deciding he'd had enough of his mates in 2018 and turning heel for the first time in an age. Having Ambrose stab Seth Rollins in the back on not just the night they'd won tag gold, but the same evening fellow brother Roman Reigns announced he was once again fighting leukemia was certainly a bold and shocking call. All of that intrigue and buzz was soon squandered in record time, however, after claiming that Roman would have to answer to the man upstairs for what he did as part of the unit, getting jabbed in the ass by a doctor before wearing a gas mask to avoid catching an illness from fans. What initially looked like an open goal for WWE became yet another disappointing miss. Number 4, Chris Jericho versus Kevin Owens, taking away the Universal Championship. This pair of wisecracking heels became Raw's MVPs, doing all they could to keep the horrendous strap on Owens' shoulder, and after a few teases of an inevitable implosion, things finally broke down after Chris Jericho chucked his pal into a title match with Goldberg at Fastlane, with that decision directly leading to an iconic Festival of Friendship breakup. Had WWE continued pushing the feud as the most important rivalry in the company, there's a solid chance KO and Jericho would have ended up main eventing WrestleMania. Instead though, Vince felt his incoming Goldberg versus Brock Lesnar Mania rematch needed the strap more, which it didn't. And this once super hot potential show of shows world title battle was ultimately downgraded to second on the card, as the two produced a forgettable contest over the US title. Number 3, Kenny Omega versus John Moxley, not doing what was practiced. Viewers had been treated to yet another exhilarating All Elite Wrestling World Championship rivalry. The cleaner had stolen the top title away from the mighty Mox at Winter is Coming. The modern greats had also put on a sickening lights out war at Full Gear 2019. And all of that chaos and bad blood led to one of the most intimidating and potentially explosive contests in company history. Or at least that latter half would have been true had one specific person bothered to stick to the previously rehearsed plan. The quote-unquote boss in charge of this explosion wasn't present for the rehearsal, and when they did show up for the actual show, their decision to try something different that would apparently make the moment look even better infamously backfired. In the end, both Kenny and the viewers watching on wished all involved had simply gone with what had been practiced beforehand. Number 2, Randy Orton versus Bray Wyatt, getting too spooky. Randy Orton and the late Bray Wyatt rivalry heading into WrestleMania 33 was initially quite fascinating. A Team SmackDown victory at Survivor Series, SmackDown Tag Team Championship reign, and both a Royal Rumble and WWE Championship win for Orton and Wyatt respectively eventually followed. But then things all started to get a little odd when the apparent babyface burned down the Wyatt compound and challenged Bray to a bout at Mania, projecting various bugs on the canvas throughout a rather dull WWE title contest. The once gripping rivalry was already completely ruined before the company then doubled down on the ridiculous spookiness with a terrible House of Horrors match at Payback. Number 1, The Rock versus John Cena, forcing a sequel. While it was never going to win any Match of the Year contests, John Cena and The Rock spitting fire at one another in the lead up to their WrestleMania 28 blockbuster made for simply electric must-see television. The call to then try and squeeze out yet another show of shows epic between the two larger-than-life figures, however, quickly undermined a lot of the instantly iconic and rather surreal work that had been committed to screens the prior year. Fans had already seen the two brilliantly go in double-footed on one another heading into what was supposedly a once-in-a-lifetime event, but WWE clearly wanted to get as much dollar as humanly possible out of this Clash of the Titans. So CM Punk was forced to drop his WWE title, one of the most painfully predictable roads to WrestleMania of all time unfolded, and Cena inevitably lifted the belt to end an initially quite incredible feud on a rather low note. Did you enjoy this video today? Then check out this 10 amazing wrestling feuds overshadowed by one moment list too then. Bye bye!